And welcome to another episode of Matt Talks Back. I'm Matt Porteous, and we're diving right into local politics. Yes, Prince George has an election coming up, October of 2026, and now the candidates are starting to announce that they're doing their running. They're doing their campaign. First one through was Mr. Roy Stewart, our mayoral candidate for 2026, somebody that also ran back in 2022. Roy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt. It's good to be here. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, you did an absolutely great job in that first run. Now, as we talked about before the show, you were a little late getting your name into the run in 2022, but you ended up third overall in that mayoral race behind Simon Yu, who ended up being our mayor, and Terry McConaughey, who ended up in second place. You were just behind Terry during that run. So, congratulations on that, first of all. Very impressive for a new name to jump into that type of an area and get the numbers that you did.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
It was an exciting, interesting time.
Absolutely, yeah. This one should be even more fun as we have further context, and I think the city knows you just a little bit better. I've been speaking with your campaign manager, Amanda, over the past couple of weeks here. You guys have done a great job kind of launching your mayoral candidate run here over on your Facebook page. Of course, you've got a great biography that you guys have written over there that kind of runs down where you came from and how you got the ideals that you do today. And then you've got your full platform, which is extremely well thought out and very detailed on that page as well. We're going to kind of skim over both of those today and see if we can sort of introduce you to Prince George, if that's all right.
Perfect.
Awesome. All right. Now, first of all, I want to start on your biography. Now, as it says in there, you actually grew up in a small town in the East Kootenays. Which town was that?
Well, I was born in Kimberley, BC,
Okay.
and at age 14, the family moved to Creston.
Yep.
Creston had at the time about a 3,000 population. Kimberley was maybe 5,000.
Right. Right. Small town, small BC town at the end of the day. How did growing up in those areas kind of shape the way you see communities such as Prince George today, which is maybe a step up from there, maybe not a small town, but more of a medium sort of a community?
Well, I like the small town approach, which fashioned some of my views, which is that you know people, you meet people every time you walk down the street. And there's a familiarity, there's almost a familiar sense when you're in those small town environments. Uh,
Yeah.
it's it, for a young person, you can't get away with shit because everybody knows you and your parents, right?
It's so
So,
true.
so, but apart from that, it was very interesting to grow up in a small town. It was a lot of freedom to do what you want. Um, you could join clubs, you could participate in sports, you could do whatever you want because you're not being crowded out by 10,000 others who want the same thing.
Right. Did you notice that when you finally ended up in Prince George, that even though it was sort of a bigger center, maybe had a little more resources to work with, you still felt kind of like that hometown feel? Everybody knows everybody. The community all knows the local grocer. Was that sort of the feeling that transferred?
Indeed, it was. I joined so many things to help others. And when I did so, I was a bit surprised in the sense that there are about 100 people who are always involved in everything. So I found that I could become familiar with that sort of crowd very easily and join and contribute to whatever it was that I wanted to do.
I've always found that too. Prince George, even though, we're sitting around, I don't know, I think the last census had us around 90,000 people or something like that. Everybody knows everybody. There's like a 3-degree, sense of separation around here. You talk to somebody knows somebody that you know, even though we're a relatively large center. And that's something that I really love about this community. Even though we're a little bit bigger, I still feel like, I'm in my high school and I kind of have a tie to everybody. And that's sort of nice at the end of the day. So once you were done in Kimberley and in Creston, you went off to university. Where did you go to school?
UBC. So I left a town of 3,000 and enrolled in a university with 24,000 students. If that doesn't define cultural shock, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was uncertain as to what I wanted to study. I'm kind of an omnivorous learner. I like to find out about things. So I went into 3 or 4 different faculties before I decided to go into law. I was married at the time when I was deciding to go into law, and having spent so much time in faculties such as the arts, commerce, chemistry, etc., I decided that I needed to be my own boss. And the law offered me the opportunity to do that.
Right.
If I, with those other skills, other faculty skills, I would be employed. I thought, no, I really want to be my own boss because that's more exciting. It's a business. I could start a business with my law degree and I could do what I wanted to do as well as I could. And I enjoyed that. So that was my choice. Went into law to do that.
So you go into law. I mean, when you're done with law, that's one of those jobs that you could really travel anywhere. You don't have to even be in Canada. You could go to the States, pass the bar down there, and you could do your thing as well. So, why was Prince George a community that you set your targets on?
Well, you've just actually said something that my boys, I have 3 boys, have said to me over the years. You could go anywhere, do anything.
Hmm.
But my first wife was from Prince George.
Right.
Her family was here. And I wanted a smaller town. I wanted my children to grow up similar to the way I grew up, with the ability to participate in anything they wanted to do, good educational opportunities, no university at the time. So I wanted a family life that emphasized family values and connection to the community. That's why I moved here.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you knew about Prince George. Was there discussions then within your wife's family to tell you about that type of a warm feeling that Prince George had, that small town feel, or was it something that you realized when you took a chance and came here?
Essentially, the latter. I took a chance, came here, and discovered that sense of familiarity with people, and it resonated with me.
Yeah, Prince George does that too. It's funny, there's stories from people that move away from Prince George, and there's like a large percentage of them that always come back too. Because when you grow up here, you kind of get annoyed with how small it is or how small it feels. And then you move away and you realize how warm and wonderful it really was, and you come back. So, yeah, I think that perception hits everybody. Something you actually just brought up too. Now, once you came to Prince George, you got involved in this community pretty quickly and heavily as well. One of the big things, one of your biggest accomplishments, was helping bring the university to Prince George with Dr. Charles Jago and that whole crew back in the day. So, looking back now, what did that experience teach you about leadership and getting things done here in the North?
Well, the board of directors of the Interior University Society was approximately 20 to 23 people from all over the area that it would serve. In the piece out to Rupert, down into the Valemont, and further south along Quesnel and Williams Lake area. And it was a very diverse group, all devoted to finding a way for advanced education to be located in central North British Columbia. Um, so leading that group uh, was a great experience for me. Prior to that, I had been the chair of the school board and had experience uh, dealing with meetings and issues both at a ministerial level and at a local level. With the University Society, we had a job to do politically. It wasn't going to happen simply because it was a good idea. And so the leadership that I brought to that was to turn it into a political issue. The government at the time, the social credit government,
Hmm.
um, was coming up to an election. There were 5 ridings that would be served by this university. And within those 5 ridings, everybody you talked to wanted this university. So essentially, if the government wanted to be reelected, it had to do what we wanted. But we had to convince them. And there was a startling development. There was a minister of advanced education named Stan Hagen, and he was interviewed by the Globe and Mail. And in that interview, he said, essentially, people in the North don't want higher education. At the dinner table, they asked their father, What was it like in the mine, Dad? What's it like in the forest, Dad? It was so patronizing, parochial, and uninformed. I read the article. I had a meeting of directors. Prior to that meeting, I phoned Stan Hagen directly. And surprisingly, they put me through to the Minister of Advanced Education.
Wow.
I had identified myself, and he says, I know who you are, he said. I said, Stan, I read the article in the Globe and Mail, and I want you to issue a retraction. He said, no way, that's exactly what I think. I said, Stan, if you're going to stand by that article, we're going to go to war, and you're not going to like it. He said, do what you have to do. So, ironically, if it wasn't for the stupid Minister of Advanced Education, we wouldn't have had an issue we could blow up into a huge political drama. And we did. And
Yep.
that's, I think, what tipped the balance in favor of getting it here.
Yeah, I actually don't think a lot of people really understand the politics that went into not only the building of the university, but the building of the Northern Sports Center, of the medical program we have up here. Ben Meisner, Dr. Bert Kelly, both have passed now, unfortunately. Absolute legends in this area that definitely brought that up too. You and your group bringing up that university and making sure we had those programs so that we could feed the jobs and the need that was up here as well. A lot of people don't understand that that's there. They just see the university at the top of the hill and they're like, oh yeah, there it is. The story to get there was amazing, and you being a part of that is a hell of a path to where you are today for sure. Now, you have spent decades now working in law, education, healthcare advocacy as well, and even community organizations. Now, when you look back at your work in every single one of those positions, is there a common thread that ties all those efforts together? Is there like do you have a mindset that you're like, I need to get to a certain goal and this is what gets me there? Or what's the thread that keeps tying you into these things?
What ties me to them is a perceived need for change,
Right.
betterment, and development of this area. And every one of the things I got involved in serves that purpose. And it was a considered step by me. It wasn't simply because I knew people that were there. I knew what was required, and I knew that we could get it if we did what was required, either politically or otherwise. It was just a matter of leadership, organization, and foresight, and being able to be at the right place at the right time to make it happen.
You're a guy that had an understanding of the process, and maybe you were a guy that could help the people with the big ideas get themselves to the conclusion that they were looking for. Am I summarizing that properly?
I think so. For example, after the university was created, I was asked by the then Minister of Advanced Education to take on a role in the university foundation to raise money for bursaries, scholarships, and visiting professorships, chairs of various faculties. I set about doing that. It was a program called North to the Future, a fundraising program that involved communities, nonprofits, and major corporations. I presented that to the Board of Governors, and they adopted it unanimously. In that presentation, I had individuals from communities all over the North, individuals who were simply people who lived in these communities but were desirous for their children to have betterment, stand up in front of the Board of Governors and say, I am 100% behind this fundraising program. I will do whatever it takes to get to the bottom, to the final line on this. And so we communicated, we connected all of the players that made that fundraising possible, and it was successful. So what you get out of that is seeing a need, seeing a way to do it, providing the leadership to get it done. And so that's an example of how I've dealt with things for the betterment of the community.
That's a great angle there too. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you also write in your, and I think you may have already answered this question, but let's hit it one more time anyway. Maybe you have something extra here. You write in your rundown on your Facebook page there that running for mayor was never an ambition for you. So what changed for you? What was the thing that convinced you that now was the time to step forward? Was it just that you saw that there were some goals out there not being reached because people didn't understand process, or was there actually like a canonizing moment that pushed you towards your mayoral candidate?
My mayoral candidacy in 2022 really came about because I understood that the city was going through quite a transformation. The forest industry was almost a sunset industry. Um, we were on the doorstep of so many big projects, but weren't a part of them. We had all this potential in this city economically. With we have manufacturers, we have suppliers, we have warehousing, we have transportation, we have skilled workers, we have a college that trains trades people to do the jobs that are vital to these projects. And my perception at the time was we're not taking advantage of that. I think we have to be at the boardrooms and the cabinet table whenever there's a project that needs to have Prince George in the center. And my advocacy could do that. I've spent 50 years as an advocate. I'm fully trained. I can read people. I can see whether they're believing what I'm saying or if they need more encouragement. I can discuss the issues, organize the presentations, do the things that are required to bring home the projects. That's what I've done all my life. That experience, that talent is what I wanted to bring to bear as a mayor. I understand the role of a mayor. I understand the role of council. I know the limits. I was solicitor for the city of Prince George and other municipalities for 20 years. So I've worked within the legislative framework. I've worked within the intergovernment framework all the time. And so I thought I could bring to bear the best qualities of that experience in the role of mayor. The mayor is not going to be a person who runs around declaring things. The mayor is the spokesperson for the council. What that means is the mayor and council have to have a consensus on the policies they want to pursue. So, my job as a mayor, if I see an opportunity for this city, or I want to correct something that is off the tracks,
Mm-hmm.
is to convince council that the right way to do it is what I'm proposing.
Yeah.
I'm very skilled at that. So, from a mayor position point of view, I'm not running around declaring things. I'm working with council. I'm developing consensus. That's what I do. And when the consensus is reached with whatever qualifications there is to my project, I advance it.
Right.
I speak for the council. I get into the politics of it. I get into the mechanisms that bring it to fruition. So that's what I thought I could do in 2022. Having gotten in so late, I didn't have, let's say, the machinery of a campaign that I'm trying to build right now. But I believe I could bring, I believed at the time, I could bring, I guess, a qualitative change to the way the city goes forward.
You're a process and communications expert. Am I crazy in calling you that?
Well, I guess it goes with me as that kind of qualification because of my prior experience
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
my education.
Yeah. Yeah, and just what you've been involved in to this point, you've seen a lot of these processes. You've seen what it takes to build things. You've seen what it takes to run budgets. You understand the process. You understand how to communicate the path to the conclusion that you're trying to get to. Is that fair?
That's fair. And at the same time, I run a business and I've run a business as a law firm. I write checks to keep it open. I know my books. I know where I'm capable of going financially and not. So that's an attitude. I brought that to bear with the symphony, the society. Their attitude when I joined was somebody's going to bail us out. Well, I'm sorry, but Santa Claus is not a real thing. You have to work at this to make it businesslike and make it not necessarily profitable, but solvent. So that was the role. I brought that to bear there. And so I think I can do the same with the city on finances, on projects, on whatever we want to spend money on, and
Right.
on taxes.
Yeah, and you've got the background to prove that. That's great. As we mentioned earlier, too, you did post your very well thought out and very detailed platform over on your Facebook page, which is Roy Stewart for mayor. People can look that up. We're also going to link it in the comments here on this podcast and all the clips we sent out. I went through it. We're not going to read it word for word because it is incredibly detailed, but I pulled out what I think are some big highlights, and I'd like to ask you a few questions on some of those. Is that okay?
Before you do,
Yeah.
referencing my website, the Roy for mayor is FOR, not the number four. So when they put it in, spell it out.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll link it as well. So if somebody is
Okay.
looking for it, it's in the comments on this video, and it'll be in every clip that we send out too. Now, I
Okay.
went over your platform over there, and throughout your paper, your platform, you talk about creating economic change instead of simply managing decline. This is something I've been railing on here for months as well. Back when Colin Kinsley was our mayor, him and his council signed a deal with Fortis, BC for a land use deal. We are a land-rich city. We got a lot of it. A lot of it not being used properly either. Fortis, BC used that land for I can't remember how many years. They paid us rent on that land for every single year they used it. Then at the end of the contract, they ended up paying us somewhere in the area of $30 million for that piece of land. At the time, I went back to councilors and said, hey, are you guys looking for more land use deals? I mean, we're a land rich city. We're up here. We got all these projects going on. These guys need land to get things done. Like, are we looking for more of that? From three councilors, I won't say who, but from three councilors, I heard no, and then nobody looked into that again. What I see when I watch council meetings regularly is a lot of schemes to raise taxes, not a lot of schemes to do business. And like you said earlier, Prince George has everything. We've got the college for training. We've got the university. We're a land-rich city as well. This is a city that should be doing business and at the end of the day, bringing those tax increases down. Now, if you become mayor, what are the first three economic priorities that you're going to tackle?
Well, first of all, I think we have to look at why taxes always go up. I think we should review our spending with a few things in mind. One, what is vital? What is necessary? Secondly, what is optional? And thirdly, why are we doing it? Uh, Everything should get a hard look. I think we can manage our taxes much better. The city cannot run a deficit on a statutory basis. That is a forbidden thing to do. If you go to the federal government, they just print money. If you go to the province, they have a deficit every year. Stupid. It's getting bigger and bigger. The interest payments are overwhelming, but the city can't run a deficit. What do you do if you're not controlling spending? You raise the taxes. That's a cop out. It's not management.
What cuts do you see out there that we could make right now that might help fix this?
Well, I'm not going to commit to that particularly because I need to look at everything. I'm a detail guy. I'm a serious person when it comes to looking at things and finding ways to do better. So there are, I'm sure, a lot of things in the budgetary framework that will lend itself to either deferral or reduction. It's just a matter of being able to go through it in detail and do that.
Right.
It's a philosophy. What you need are people on council that share that philosophy.
Gotcha. Yep, 100%. Also, in your platform, you argue that Prince George missed opportunities around major resource projects are abound out there because local businesses were not fully involved. Looking back, what should the city have done differently, and how would you prevent that from happening once again? How do we get local businesses involved in some of the major resource projects and opportunities in this area?
One way is to have ready at hand in the city an economic development profile that we can take to boardrooms and cabinet tables when these projects are being developed. finalized. We can promote, we can show that many companies who want to do these major projects can actually save money by utilizing the available resources and advantages of Prince George. We
A
can,
resource sheet. It's like an inventory. Having an inventory of what we could what we have that they could use. Is that
that's part of it.
right?
Obviously, you have to, people who don't know anything about Prince George,
Yeah.
but know that it sits in a geographic center near their project, need to be informed enough to know, hey, we don't have to fly in workers. We don't have to import fabricated materials that can be done here. We have a transportation network second to none. So there are many advantages here that I think are not being promoted properly the way I think they should be promoted, which I say is at the board table and
Yep.
at the cabinet table.
Yep.
We have to move into the sphere of decision making
Yep.
to influence those decisions.
100%. I mean, this is another thing I've been railing on too. I mean, we saw it in Kitimat. You know, Kitimat had that massive work center built there when they had that pipeline going through. It wrecked the city because, yeah, sure, you had an extra 1,000 people down there, but none of them were shopping in the city. They were shopping out in the middle of the camp because they had bowling alleys out there. They had grocery stores out there. None of the money got to Kitimat. Another thing that bugs me too is that when Prince George does large, a company comes in and does a large subdivision or something like that, we seem to let them do it incredibly cheap. You go to Alberta, and when they build subdivisions, they're also forced to build a baseball diamond or trails for the community or something else that ties to the community that adds to it at the end of the day. Now, I don't know. I'm not in these meetings. I'm not at the board table, but it seems like Prince George is missing out on when we sign deals with companies coming in to do these big projects, not making them also add something very positive that everyone in the community can use. For this massive project that they're making big money on. I see
Well,
Alberta do it very well. I feel like we don't.
I know for a fact that in the planning department, where zoning, land use, and other factors are weighed,
Hmm.
there has been, and I think still is often with land subdivisions, a requirement that there be a portion of that land set aside for parkland or schools or for other community use aspects.
Yeah.
So it is built in to the planning process.
Okay.
So we're not necessarily losing out. Um, it's something perhaps that we could enhance, but at the same time, you have to balance the costs of a project that we superimpose on the viability of that project. And we have to be very careful not to spoil our nest
Right.
by going around asking for the moon. We have to be careful about that. But right now in the planning process, there are requirements for certain set asides that would benefit the community.
Right. We saw an absolute failure of this policy not too long ago. I can't remember which building it was up in the heart, but they were told that to put their building on this land, they had to build a sidewalk. And so they did. But the sidewalk connected to nothing. It was out in front of their building, right on the front roadway, and it's just a sidewalk that was like 100 feet long, and then it ended, and that was it. And it was like, oh, who was the city planner that signed off on that one? That did nothing for the community. So
Well,
maybe just
I
some
think
more eyes on helps that. Sorry.
there is something about what you're saying that I think needs attention, and that is the often unrealistic requirements superimposed on people who are either subdividing or developing property. There has to be a limit. I, I've had clients come to me in the past indicating they had fulfilled everything required, took it back, and were asked to do more and more to conform to the demands of the city for what was otherwise a relatively simple idea. There has to be a limit on the superimposition of these requirements.
Yeah.
Um, that has to be reviewed. And I think everyone who wants to invest in this city needs to have and I think they're developing some of it now, a way in which they can get a clear, predictable, definitive list of whatever it is that's required, not for their requirements to change depending on who's looking at the project.
Right.
So that
Consistency. Yeah.
it's doing business properly
Yeah.
that needs to be built into this aspect.
Proper communication, proper consistency so that nobody's surprised at the end of the day and ends up in another legal battle. No, that 100% makes sense. Before we move on here, you posted a couple of videos where you kind of talk about a little bit of your outlook for Prince George and kind of some of the problems that you're hearing whenever you talk to residents. Is it okay if I play those?
Sure.
All right,
Fine.
let's pop those up and take a look here. Oh, here we go.
The number one thing I'm hearing these days is taxes are too high, and people think they're not getting value for money. Families are tightening their belts, and they think City Hall should do the same. As mayor, I would take a close look at all spending. We would look to maintain the services people rely on, but take a hard look at everything else. I want to treat tax money as if it came out of my own pocket. That's the responsible fiscal management I would bring to City Hall. It's time for leadership that listens and gets results, not politics.
I don't
The
think
number one thing I'm hearing these days
Oh,
is
one
taxes
sec.
are too high, and people
There we go. Technical difficulty. Now, I know you couldn't hear that there, but you were talking about taxes and just how that's one of the top things you're hearing from people out there when it comes to the thing that they're worried about. We're seeing these AAP, these alternative, funding processes going through on a regular basis as well. Is that a proper way to be asking for funds from Prince George, or do you see a better way to do that? Because I am seeing a lot of people not only mad about the constant tax increases, which I think lands on exactly what you were talking about before, being fiscally responsible and making sure we're looking over some of our spends, but do you think that maybe we have leaned a little bit too far into lazy techniques to get tax raises with AAP, and is there a better way to possibly do that from your purview?
Well, under the various pieces of legislation, what you're talking about is a means to an end for funding for certain projects, depending upon the overall projected cost.
Yeah.
It's not something that I would say the city is sliding by us. It's a process that's allowed under the various legislations.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Oversight is perhaps the back end of that, figuring out if the money is being spent properly, uh, whether we are being taken advantage of
Yeah.
by people who supply or work as contractors. The back end of that is fiscal management in the sense of we've essentially said, here's our budget for this project. But what we need to be also careful about is whether the spending of that money is carefully monitored and dealt with, corrected if necessary. So there's a lot of pieces to what you're asking. I'm not going to suggest that the city is not following legislative protocols.
Well, they are. Yep, they are.
And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just concerned, as you imply, that how much we're spending on what we're spending it on what we're spending it,
Yep.
and I call it the fiscal management of that spending. Uh, when you think about the parkade next to City Hall, it's in a flood plain.
Yep.
The excuse I heard for the overspending, the mammoth overspending, was that the engineers didn't anticipate a water problem. When you build an underground facility in a floodplain, now you go scratch your head and think, what the hell kind of an explanation is that?
Well, you know what happened there, right? So,
Anyway, that's just an example of poor management
Totally. So the AAP is not the problem. Really, it's making sure that we're spent. If we knew that our spending was proper, then the AAP would never be an issue. It's the
Right.
fact that we're not sure if we're overspending on things or doing maintenance when we shouldn't have to that is the problem. And I can point to this too. Anybody that follows my podcast page will know that a couple of weeks ago I put up a post because I was trying to figure out this CN Center reno that's going on right now. Now the envelope on the CN Center currently has issues. We've had water leaking inside the CN Center for about a decade now. So I kind of dove into this a little bit when I saw the AAP come up and get approved. I was like, all right, what's going on? Because I know when the CN Center was built, they told us it had a 75-year life expectancy. We're 30 years in. Why are we redoing this thing? So I dove into the reports. Now, it's interesting. The city has 10 years of maintenance reports on the CN Center. But in 2023, the report that they put out, that was the one that actually said that they should do these renos, didn't have all the information in it that actually proved that these renos needed to be done. It pointed to a 2016 report that had info on them actually getting into the envelope, really assessing the damage and understanding what had happened. Now, they didn't release that 2016 report. They released the 2023 report and said, there, that's good enough. But the problem is the 2023 report was pointing to another report that had all the details in it of why it had to happen, and that was just unavailable. So I put up a post saying, why is the city hiding this information from us? Immediately got some callbacks from some of the councilors. And they said, well, we have 10 years of maintenance records out there, so we don't have to put up that 2016 report. And so I pulled the wording out of the document. I said, look, this 2023 report points to the 2016 report and says that that is the reason that we need to do the renovations. I said, so if you're not releasing the 2016 report, you haven't given us the proper info as citizens as to why this happened. One of the councilors, Corey Ramsey, she reached out and said, you know what? She said, you're right. I see that now. Let me reach out to Andy Beasley and see what we can do. She did. She reached out to Andy, who was on holidays at the time, and said, Andy, we haven't released this report, but Matt's asking for it, and he makes a good point. This report right here says that this is the proof that we need to do the renos, and we haven't released that. 4 days later, Andy released that report to me with the budgetary side of it redacted, because as they said, they currently have that project out to tender, and having old budget numbers in there could mess with their current tender project. I'm not even sure how that could happen, to be honest. We all know that there's been inflation and that things have changed since 2016, but okay, I'll grant them that at the end of the day. They gave me the report. I've now released the report out to the public. But it's things like that that make things look really sketchy at the end of the day. Why was I not able to see that report from day one? I should have been able to, because now when I can't see it, I'm thinking they're hiding something. Whether it's budgetary or something else, maintenance of them not doing their work, something's being hidden. So I think you're right. I think we need full transparency so that people like me, the independent media, don't even get me started on corporate media. I don't think they're doing their job right now. But so everybody can get a look at it, and we can actually get a good look at what's going on and uncover some things at the end of the day. Prince George City Admin was voted the number one most secretive council in all of Canada for 2 years running, about 4 years ago. And I really feel like we haven't moved past that. So maybe you kind of worked that answer out for me perfectly. Maybe AAP is not the problem. That's just a process at the end of the day. The real problem is we don't have transparency and a good look at how this city is spending things. And that's kind of what we need to do. That was a heck of a rant I just went on, but was I right?
Well, let me rephrase it a bit.
Sure.
It seems to me for the citizens of Prince George to have trust in the council, they have to be fully informed. And if you, in your example, there's a clear indication that they're hiding information, that may be not a indication of wrongdoing, but simply a procedural part of why we are the most secretive part of city in the Canada. We need to change this.
Yep.
So transparency and accountability go hand in hand, and that will develop trust. If we breach the barriers that prevent the sharing of pertinent information on a regular basis without somebody like yourself having to go to great lengths to find out something. Yeah. We need that transparency so that both the administration and the council are accountable, that they have to have a ready true explanation of how things got off the rails or why they're not off the rails. We need to know clearly. So I think transparency and accountability are, which are part of my platform, are vital
Yeah.
in order for you and all the citizens to trust what is going on at City Hall.
That actually rolls right into my next question, too. Funny how that works. Transparency is actually a major theme of your campaign. You bring it up multiple times in the platform that you've posted online. Is there one thing today that you believe City Hall should make public or make easier to access that is not?
I think the background to decisions that, and such decisions might be controversial, but the background information has to be available. It cannot be sheltered. Certainly, a 2016 report, in my opinion, is not going to spoil the bidding process for a project in 2026.
I agree.
I mean, I don't think that makes logical sense. But to have to go to great lengths to leverage information isn't the style I want at City Hall. I want City Hall to be more than willing to assist people to get to the bottom of background information that are associated with their decisions. So that's a component of my campaign. I and you look at the candidates that are coming out now. They lived and breathed that way during the time when they were in office. They didn't on the table and get things transparently available to people. So one of the reasons I emphasize it is it's a change. It's a change in management. It's a change in attitude, change in philosophy, a change in policies that needs to be implemented so that every one of us can be comfortable and trust what's going on.
You know, one thing that I think would be great, every time we do a project over a certain amount of money, let's say it's $500,000 here in the city, that budget should be posted. I want to see it. Show me where every dollar was spent. Show me how you did it. Show me the mistakes. Show me the mess ups you guys did. Show me, in the case of Clay Tenay Memorial Park, show me the money that we had to spend on doing archaeological stuff as well. I want to see how every one of my dollars was spent. I've asked some of the leaders currently for this type of thing, and I've been told, well, you can get that through Freedom of Information. I don't want to get it through Freedom of Information. I'm paying you guys willingly taxes every single year, and I should be able to see exactly how those are spent. I don't want to see smoke and mirrors. If a project's over a certain amount of money, it should be posted. Now, when I brought this to a couple of counselors, both of them had the same response. And they said, well, you can get it through an FOI request. And Matt, do you really want us spending money on admin doing things like searching for budgets and putting them online? And I said, that is the worst response I've ever heard, because number one, you already have that budget. We know you do. Any city or any contractor has to have a budget to do a project anyway. And you have people that are posting things on your website too. So all you do is add that to their workday. There's no more money going to the taxpayers. So I think transparency needs to be job one, and we need to be over transparent. We need to show residents that have lost trust in the process that we are totally open with as much information we can be. And if there is information that can't be released, we need to have a proper reason, a logical string of reasoning that leads us to that conclusion. Because I'm tired of being told that I can't have information because I'm too stupid or I'm too this or too that. That's BS. At the end of the day, those are my dollars paying for those projects. Show me how it works. Am I crazy in that in asking for that?
Not at all. There are certain legal constraints as to the release of information. For example, if the city's involved in a lawsuit, or if the city is dealing with employee relations of some vital nature. But otherwise, I want to treat every tax dollar as if it came out of my pocket.
Yeah.
I want to be careful. I want to be able to justify what is being spent. And I want people to be able to look at the information and say, I agree, this is a justifiable expenditure. Or point out there's a cheaper way of doing it. Or point out this is unnecessary in the first place. Something like that. I want to hear from people. I want to hear, if I'm elected mayor, I want to hear from people every day. I want to know why they're thinking the way they are and how we can deal with their perspective. I want that vitally. I think it's very critical. You know, we had a 27% turnout in the last election.
Yeah.
27%. And we obviously, as a citizenry, take our democracy for granted.
Mhm.
Well, in a way, you get what you pay for. If you're not interested enough to vote, then don't complain. You got to come out. And I want another 10,000 people to vote this time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I can do that, but to just shame them into saying, you know, I shouldn't be complaining because I didn't vote. You have that's a component of how we can turn this community around.
I think it's
We have
deeper
to,
than that, to be honest. I think that people don't think their vote matters anymore. And that's part of what I'm trying to do on my side, though, too, Roy. You know, if you look at my Facebook page right now, I'm doing counselor report cards. So one
I
thing
saw that.
I've noticed in the past, you know, I've been around for 40 years now in the community, watching our elections go down. They're popularity contests. Rarely do we go in and we actually look at how that counselor, how that mayor has voted on issues in our in our city, and actually judge them on those things. We just go, yeah, I met him one time. I had a beer with him over at the CN Center for an event, and that was really good. So I liked him. I'm going to vote for him. I thought what we need a 10,000 foot overview of how these people govern and how they do their thing. And I think if people could understand that at the end of the day and have some issues they could actually vote towards rather than, yeah, I know that guy or he said a nice thing on Facebook about me, then maybe we're actually educating our population. Giving us educated voters is going to give us educated leaders. And I think that's a big problem of the media. You know, the fact that I can put a database together and do these report cards like this, and we don't have local media guys that are doing this 12 hours a day doing the same thing or doing it better than I am, blows my mind. We got to get away from popularity contests and we got to get back to votes and the actual governance of every single person that is going to join City Hall. So I'm working on that on my side for sure. And I think if we could be a little bit more transparent at the top end so that people didn't feel like they were constantly being tricked, they would also be more into the process as well. So I think if we could start the conversation, even with podcasts like this and getting clips out there and letting people understand issues, I think we get closer to that. But I also don't think we're going to see a massive jump where it's going to go from 27% to 60% or something. If we can get up to 35 this time around, I'd be a happy guy.
it is a question of incremental change.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But I also take exception to people either thinking their vote doesn't count or not participating at all. Um, they have to take a stand on things. You have to sort of get involved. It's my way of doing things, but I think people should be informed enough to make the choices that are going to affect them for the next 4 years or more. So it is I don't know how you do it,
Yep.
but it's a criticism, I guess, of our voters. But the thing is, I stand. I'm a hard worker. I'm a serious guy. I'm not into performative politics. I want to get the job done. I just want to do the job with everything I've set out, and I think that way people will develop more trust. People will become more engaged. Maybe part of the change has to be changing at the top.
Yep.
Maybe bringing someone like myself into that spot with my platform being implemented will bring people out of their indifference or their lack of interest.
Yep.
I think
No,
it could happen.
it's a good angle. We got to try something different, and I think you're right there. I want to dive into a few things that came out in your platform actually that had me raise an eyebrow a little bit. You got some ideas, my friend. One of your boldest proposals, lobbying for a military base here in Prince George. Why do you think that's something that makes sense? And realistically, what influence can a mayor have over a federal decision like that?
Well, you're right. It's a federal decision,
Yeah.
but federally, in light of the security issues this country faces, both with our neighbor and globally, they have announced the creation of a 400,000 personnel militia. So that's a first step because under the liberal governments of the past, our military preparedness has been neglected. Now they're changing that and they want to invigorate it, to make it solid. When you think about what priorities should be given to that, securing a hub of communications in the north should be a priority. Everything in the south is within 100 miles of the US border.
Yeah.
The interdiction of railway, of highways, not a hard job if you're only going to have to go 100 miles. We have a spot here that offers, I think, for security purposes, the ability to protect this transportation network and also to deal with aerial threats and other kinds of potential threats, external, coming in. So we need a military base here. Why would they do that? Well, the logic of it makes sense, but we don't vote liberal in this part of the woods. We just don't. So they may feel, as I suspect they will, why would we put something like that in a conservative area? That betrays our national security. They have to have a higher ordered sense of how to deal with security.
Yep.
I think with proper advocacy, we can make this happen. Um, what is proper advocacy? It's something I do, I've done, can do. Once you realize the project is logical, it offers great advantages both nationally and locally. A military base, in my opinion, would generate thousands of jobs. To supply it, to uh, do everything that's required on logistics.
Yeah, not to mention the federal dollars that come into our community then too. There's going to be
Sure,
infrastructure.
sure.
There's going to be extra additions to that. So yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's on my list
Yep.
of things that can be done and should be done. There are other things on that list as well you might want to talk
Oh
about.
yeah.
But okay.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah, no, I really like that angle, actually. A military base is interesting. Of course, we've had that here before. Back in World War II,
Yep.
Prince George was a major hub. And as a matter of fact, we had a lot of people stationed here that basically, pretty much ran the city while the war was going on as well. It does make sense. We do have some problems with, a possible aggressive military from Russia coming over that northern side there too. And of course, the U.S. is bolstering Alaska for the exact same problem that they see too. So no, it makes a lot of sense. And at the end of the day, if we can get some more federal dollars into Prince George to help out the community, it's a great way to do it. There are going to be some people that are going to be a little choked that a possible military base could be here just because they hate military. But at the end of the day, every country needs some type of military. You got to have some defense, and it's not a bad thing to have it in your community. I agree with you there. You also suggest that Prince George should pursue a new federal prison. Some people will see that as a little bit controversial as well. Why do you think that's the right move for the Prince George area?
Well, in my opinion, the federal government's control of the criminal law will generate more and more sentences for particular offenses that require there to be imprisonment. And we already have the Prince George Regional Correctional Center for 2 years less a day type offenses.
Yep.
We need to be able to house and protect communities from serious crime. And if there's a time for it, it is now. Because we are plagued. We are plagued in this country with crime that is not being adequately dealt with due to federal control over things like bail or uh, regulations that govern how judges offer what I would call softball tactics or sentences.
Mhm.
We have to step out of that because, in my experience as a lawyer, it's my opinion that some people are not capable of being habilitated or rehabilitated. They are inherently dangerous people. And to offer them minor imprisonment, probation, and other softball tactics
Yep.
based upon a philosophy of rehabilitation doesn't work. Now, so a federal prison, when we get to the point of dealing with the criminal activity that deserves significant incarceration, it's already in the code, the criminal code, but I hope it will be applied more rigorously. But that's a matter of lobbying and advocacy as well, both for the physical structure and for the approach to dealing with criminals who are incapable of being habilitated.
Right. Right.
So
Okay.
it's just part of a philosophy that my philosophy that we can do a lot better,
Yeah.
and the city can benefit from a project like that.
I got to ask a question about that too. So, and actually, this rolls right into my next question a little bit as well. One thing I hear a lot of people saying too is that with our prison here in Prince George, a lot of times smaller communities will have crime done. They will have their court case here. They're jailed here in Prince George, and then they don't get shipped out when that sentence is over. In your platform, you also mentioned an influx of street people imported into our city as well. Would a federal prison be importing those exact same types of people? And is that an issue that we could deal with civically?
Well, civically, there is no jurisdiction to deal with criminal law.
None. Yeah.
Um, However, we have a policing side which is designed either to prevent or to capture people in the act of criminal offenses. So we need to be able to hold those people and deal with them appropriately.
Right.
The RCMP, the bylaw enforcement officers, are doing the best they can with the tools they've got. But criminal law wise, it's the federal government alone who has the ability to strike a fair balance between prevention and rehabilitation. There's another element here, and that's deterrence. People who are repeat offenders clearly are not being deterred from repeating what they have done that led them to the courts.
Hmm.
So, deterrence, although a factor in sentencing, deterrence should not overwhelm the security and safety aspects that go with sentencing. So, that in turn means more advocacy and lobbying to get changes. We can't on our own deal with the criminal law element, but we can, with effective lobbying and advocacy, make a difference, I think, in how the senior levels of government deal with these issues.
Is city police an option that you've ever thought about? I know that they can kind of work a little bit more outside of the RCMP, window a little bit. Is that a viable solution to what we're dealing with here?
I don't think so. The RCMP offer a service. We pay 90% of the cost.
Yeah.
So 10% is picked up by the feds due to the size of the municipality.
Yeah.
Um, to reinvent that wheel, as they tried to do in Surrey, has simply led to more problems. I don't think they're as effective as they were under the RCMP.
Right.
You've got a chief of police who's been fired. You have all sorts of complaints about the level of service right now in Surrey. And I think they made a blunder when they decided to get rid of the RCMP and create their own force.
Right.
It's very expensive to do.
Oh, it's insanely. Yeah, we've looked at it too. Yeah. You know, I'll tell you about a personal experience, and I don't like dealing with personal experiences when we're talking 10,000 foot level, but I think this one ties in a bit. I was out having a couple of beers with some friends a couple years ago, and someone walked in the door, sat beside me. I was turned this way, kind of talking to this guy over here. Someone sat in behind me and heard what I was talking about. He didn't like what I said, and he swore at me, pulled me off the back of my stool, and stomped on my head. I hadn't even interacted with the guy. He just lost his shit and stomped on my head. I got up. He knocked me out. I must have been out for a second or something, because the next thing I remember, I was up, and I was in the guy's face, and I punched him. So there's video, because it was inside of an establishment. There was video of the entire thing. I was like, perfect, we're going to get this guy. We even figured out who he was like 6 hours later. Had the guy's name, knew where he lived, had everything. I took it to the cops the next day, and I feel bad for those guys. And I'm mad for me too. But I went to the RCMP officer, and he looked at it, and he said, he's like, well, I haven't looked at the video yet, but he's like, did you hit him? I said, yeah. I got up off the ground, and I smoked him. And he's like, well, he goes, I can put this charge in, but the Crown is going to look at this as a mutual fight, and you're not going to get anything out of it. And I said, well, you can look at the video. You can see that I didn't interact with the guy at all. He pulled me off my stool and stomped on my head. I said, I don't think it's right that the fact that I got up and tried to defend myself takes away the fact that there could be a charge on this guy. And he said, I agree with you completely. He said, that's just what we see. He said, do you want to press charges? I said, yeah, I do, because that's bullshit. And I didn't believe him. I was like, this is just some young cop that doesn't want to do the work. And he's like, look, man, he's like, I'll do the paperwork and everything. He's like, it's going to take me 3 weeks to get it done, but he's like, I'll do it, and we'll get back to you. I didn't even get a call back. So I went down there again 3 weeks later and asked them about it. And I was basically laughed at the front desk and told that, that's gone now. So I don't know what the answer is, but I can tell you right now, there's no way that that should happen, and that there should be absolutely no recourse for me on the back end. Because what this does is it makes a guy like me, who grew up in the gangster days of Prince George, want to reach out to some old buddies I got and roll up to this fucker's house and show him what's up. You know what I mean? And I think that that's where this goes at the end of the day. Police have to deal with these situations, and if they don't, there's going to be another circuit of people that come in and do it. And we've seen that in Prince George in the 90s, and I'm worried that that's going to come back. You know what I mean?
Well, I can't help you with the fact that the RCMP didn't process it. The RCMP seemed to have an issue with charge approval. They don't do the charge approval.
Crown Counsel, yeah.
That's a policy in British Columbia. I mean, if the RCMP were doing the charge approvals, they may not, since they're not trained as lawyers, be able to justify the charges all the time. There are certain criteria that are legally oriented that have to be met, and the review of evidence and so on.
Yeah, Crown has to do the thing. It's just crazy that they would deny something like that. And I guess civically, we don't really have much of an angle to change that, do we? That is provincial and federal.
That's right. The provincial government is in charge of the administration of justice, meaning they pay Crown Counsel, they pay for courthouses, they pay for staff in the courthouse. The feds appoint the senior judges, pay their salaries. They subsidize us with the RCMP and so on and so forth. So it's a division of powers.
If we had city police, could we direct our city police to do something different that way, or no? They still go through Crown Counsel the exact same way and probably get the same denial.
Yes, it's that way because the provincial government controls that process.
Right. Okay. I got you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we're going to have to vote in both federally and provincially before those changes happen. But like you said, it all comes down to making sure you're talking to the right people and showing the path to these things too. And that's something that mayor and council can do. It's blowing the whistle, showing the problem, finding the resources to get there. Gotcha. In your paper, you also criticize quite often, a couple of times actually, performative politics. Without naming any individuals, what behaviors are you kind of speaking to? And what would you do differently as mayor to make sure you don't participate in those types of things?
Well, performative politics, in my opinion, is in the year of election, you suddenly see members of council or candidates putting forward pictures of themselves with other people, other groups, lauding their involvement and sort of papering their presence. We have issues in this city. I remember vividly in May, I think it was, we had fires on 4th Avenue in the alley because some twit went into the electrical box and tried to strip the copper wire. It exploded, started fires in 4 businesses. Okay, that's a
One of those
weekend.
still not open today. Yeah.
That happened on the weekend. On Monday, some counselors were posting pictures with the heading, had a great weekend, and they show them, at the lake or something.
Yeah.
There's an issue here that is ignored so that they can portray themselves as visible. And performative politics also includes taking a position when you know it has no legs, can't possibly come to fore, but you want it publicized.
Yeah.
That's not my style. I want to know enough about what to do
That's right.
about the
That's
problem.
the exact same thing I was talking about with the popularity contest. That's exactly what that is. It's look at all the
That's
cool
the
things I did, look at the cool people I know, name dropping, all that type of shit. I don't care. Tell me what you did. How did you bring my taxes down? What vote did you put in? What idea did you bring forward that changed my life? Because that's what we're paying these people for at the end of the day. I don't give a shit if you took a picture with somebody. Show me what you
well,
did.
to say that your weekend was great when the downtown was on fire
Maybe your weekend shouldn't have been so great.
epitomized to me the lack of attention, the lack of focus, the lack of knowledge about what's happening in the community, but they want to be either reelected or elected.
100%. Yeah. No, I can agree with that. Another thing you mentioned too, you proposed public inquiries. This was interesting. I think I like this if I fully understand your idea here. You propose public inquiries into issues like cost overruns, infrastructure maintenance, and economic development delays as well. If you could launch one inquiry today, what would it be and why?
Well, it's a package,
Yep.
quite frankly. Um, let's start with the inefficiencies that are built in, apparently, into the approval processes that run through the administration at the city. I think there are inefficiencies that lead to ineffective work. We we can streamline that. The idea should be, how can I help you accomplish what you want? Not, these are the reasons you can't do this. We need a better attitude and a better sense of progress in the administration. I get that complaint a lot from people in business. When somebody's shit in your doorway overnight and you're there to open the store,
Yeah.
and you have someone who unfortunately has been abandoned, lives in the doorway, has no ability to comprehend anything, you phone the bylaw people and they tell you, live with it.
Yep.
That is not good enough. That is way below the level that we expect. There should be a basis for that person to get the assistance they require to, if they touch this person, that is to say, if the business owner touched this person, that opens the door to all sorts of potential claims that someone could invent. You have to have a system to deal with this. So, anyway, that's an example of how things have to change. On the issue of maintenance of public facilities,
Mm-hmm.
there, there, with every public facility that we've invested in, there are aspects to that have regular maintenance requirements, if fulfilled, which would avoid calamitous failure or the need prematurely to replace. So let's find out what the policies are, how they're implemented,
Yeah.
and why they don't work.
Yeah.
And let's change them. So that's what I call a public inquiry. Okay, that's just finding out enough to make the right decisions.
Right.
And there, so that's really what I'm calling for in that setting in terms of inquiries.
So our current setup has a bit of an issue with this idea. Our current mayor and council can only speak to one person in city admin. Did you know this? Do you know about this process?
I've heard this.
Yeah. So the city manager, Walter Babich, is the only person that mayor and council can talk to. And that's something that's been done in our own civic bylaws that I believe can be changed if I'm not mistaken. Our city manager, ever since the Kathleen Soltis days, it's like they believe that one of their duties is to run interference for anybody that makes mistakes below them. I believe it's their job to protect people below them and make sure that they're doing their jobs correctly. I don't think it's to run interference for them. Like we see things like our local media asking questions from city admin and getting a drafted letter over and over again for answers for their questions. We see FOI requests coming back fully redacted. It just seems like a constant job of our city manager to block as much info and communication as possible. So is one of the things, do you think, is this possible in your mind? And is one of the things that you want to do to open up communication and open up the transparency between city admin and the community itself? Because I believe that's a gap right now.
Well, let me give you a bit of history.
Sure.
When I acted for the city as their lawyer and for regional districts and other smaller communities, I dealt with the administration. If I dealt with council, it was at council meetings where questions arose,
Yep.
usually in camera and so on and so forth. I would meet with the then city manager regularly as their lawyer.
Was that Soltis?
No, this is before that.
Okay.
In any event, my observation then was that the role of the city manager was to control city council. In other words, not let city council move away from the directions that the administration wanted. And it works. It may not be to your satisfaction or mine, but it works. The control is there for a reason. However, part of the transparency and accountability issue involves changing that. Now, you were correct when you first said that bylaws channel communications, deal with restricting council's inquiries, can be changed because it's a bylaw.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
They can repeal it, they can change it, they can do whatever they want with it. If we want to open up all of the information that may be needed on occasion by council to council, I think we may have to change that.
Okay, you're seeing the same issue I am then. That was, yeah.
But also, let me say one other thing.
Yeah.
I like Walter Babich.
Yeah, I like him personally too. Yeah.
He's a fine man, and I'm not suggesting anything is being done incorrectly.
Me neither.
All I'm saying is it is a pattern that has existed for a long time. And he's not the author. He's simply there fulfilling a role that is set up in such a way that this control exists.
100%. And I honestly, we're going real deep here. I honestly think we made a mistake when we hired Walter, and this is no shame to Walter in any way, shape, or form, but we had two city managers that we had to pay out because we were not happy with the work we were getting out of them. And then we hired the guy that was trained by those two city managers. And I went, guys,
Well,
you know, like hire somebody from the outside and maybe we could be a little bit more sure that we're going to get away from these issues.
well,
But
one of the features of the role of mayor is to work with both council and the administration. I am not saying that I want to change anybody's job.
no,
I'm saying that the policies and procedures that were built up over years that the city manager works within,
yep,
that city council may on occasion be frustrated by,
yep.
can be changed.
That's exactly what I'm pointing at.
Yeah,
I
it's
in the
not a,
past we could have had somebody in there that maybe would have had a different angle on it. I'm not saying Walter's not the guy. I like Walter. I've had conversations with Walter. He's a smart guy. He understands what's going on. I fully believe that he believes he's doing the best thing that he can do in how he does things. I also believe that I was in media during the Beth James and Kathleen Soltis times, and I saw them crush conversation and crush communication. And I just see many of the same tactics being used by Walter. That doesn't make him a bad guy. It just means that he was trained a certain way at the end of the day. And I just wish sometimes that we had brought somebody else in that was not trained in the same way of crushing communication. I think you're right. I think by going forward, like you just said, we can change some of these bylaws. We can change the way that council communicates with admin. And I'm glad to hear that that's something you're willing at looking at. I don't have the answers. I'm not on the inside of this thing. I don't understand it fully. I understand it better than some, and I got connections with you guys that understand it even better than me. So, no, I think you're dead on there. Sorry, go ahead.
so one thing that I want to be clear about is a person like Walter or any other previous city manager works within the systems, the protocols, the procedures that have been established by city council.
Yep.
So he's not the author of restrictions. He's working with whatever it is that he has. He's a, I think Walter, in whatever setting, if we loosen it up, if we change it, he would perform as well. He'd be very good at his job. It's just that he has the opportunity, like any city manager, given the procedures, the protocols, and the communications set out in the bylaws, to do what he's doing.
Yeah,
It's not bad, it's not good, it's not indifferent, it's just what he does.
it is.
And
Yeah.
if it changes, he would adapt properly and I'm sure very adroitly to make sure that he conforms with whatever new standard is there.
100%. No, I fully agree with you. Yeah. All right, let's wrap this thing up, Roy. I got one more question for you. We're doing an overreaching one here. Let's see how we do. Finally, let's imagine tomorrow you're elected, and I invite you back exactly 1 year from today, or from tomorrow, let's say. What's 3 measurable things that you expect the public to hold you accountable for?
Well, first, I think one would be whether the taxes increased. My task initially would be to get that under control and to stop, if I can, through city council, spending exceeding budget. That would be one accomplishment that I would want to be clear about
Yep.
a year from now. Because the budget comes through a process that's finalized in the spring.
Yep.
And it's then that we know. On the other hand, I think another thing that needs to be broadened and changed is the position of the mayor as an advocate for the city based on consensus of city council. Right now, the mayor is not even on the intergovernment committee. He's not the advocate. I want that changed so that with my experience, my education, my talent as an advocate, I'm front and center. And I'm leading the charge for all of the things that I know we need to change or to get to make this city better. So a year from now, on that report card, I can talk to you about what I've accomplished along that line.
Great. You got one more?
Sorry,
I
one
said,
more?
do you got one more? That's two.
Yeah, I see. Well, a year is a little bit of a short period to get all that I want to do done.
Could I ask, maybe in 1 year, do you think that you could make a move on the homeless population and the destruction of downtown?
Yes,
There
I
you go.
think we can. You see, here's my expectation. There will be a facility created that will operate to treat people plagued by mental illness or drug addiction. What that can do is relieve the pressure on Northern Health, on all of the service providers that try to deal with these people and give them some sense of hope.
Right. You're talking about the involuntary care center at the old youth jail.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
What I've done recently is I've made a proposal to the university to hold a symposium. Now, what is that? That's a group of people with like interests discussing something. Okay?
Our university, I love this. Our university needs to get involved in this more. Continue.
I want all of the service providers that are located in the downtown, there may be as many as 50 for all I know, who operate in their own silos to get together and find out how they can be more efficient, more effective, and actually bring someone who's suffering these horrendous problems into the loving care and, I'm going to call it, change of life that's needed, but make it more effective, more efficient. That is a proposal I've made.
Yep.
And I'm hoping the university will pick it up. It will have national importance because in so many communities who are suffering the same problems that we have, there isn't a sense of how it can be changed. So I'm hoping that through this work, we can implement a change, a very dramatic change in how people are dealt with that are left on the streets.
Yep.
And if you look around the downtown, you see many buildings, many offices, many storefronts dedicated in some fashion to either indigenous people, drug addicted people, or others who are necessarily in trouble. There are scads of these storefronts. The symposium should outline just exactly what they do, how they do it, what the resources they need are, how they get their resources, how we can open up the silos and bring together people with complementary skills, complementary resources, complementary plans, and bring them to bear on the problem. So that's part of what I'm proposing to the university. I want the university and the city to sponsor this symposium and to implement the outcomes that are identified.
Yep.
So
I think
that we this will change, I think, on a national scale, how communities can deal with this problem.
you
And
hit on something big here. One thing that happens out there, my girlfriend currently works with a company called Connective. She's one of these NGOs, non-government organizations. One thing that happens out there, these organizations that you're talking about, they all fight for budgets. They're fighting for the same budgets at the end of the day, and
but
it gets.
they may overlap their work. They may be duplicating other people's work.
This is exactly what I'm saying, and they're fighting for the same budget. So I think you're right. If we could have a directory overall saying, here's what this company does, here's what this company does, here's what this company does, we can amalgamate a lot of them at the end of the day and make them much more efficient, meaning the dollars stretch further too. I think that we are just horrifically unorganized, and we've got some organizations out there that are just not efficient enough to be coming out with any outcomes. So I think you're exactly right. We need to have this discussion, first of all, and damn, if the university would get involved in a little bit more of these things. They're so far away from the city. I think sometimes we forget about them, but you're totally right. That is that's a research facility at the end of the day. Let's
Well,
task
it's
them
not,
with researching Prince George and task them with finding some fixes to some of the big problems we have. I like that angle.
they're not only academically researching, but part of the reason we got this university, part of the reason I promoted this university, was so that it interconnects with each community, so that it is actually a viable living example of how education and practicality can be brought to bear on problems. And that's what I'm asking here.
I love that. No, that's a great angle. I mean, your platform at the end of the day seems like it's engaging a whole bunch of different parts of community that might have kind of been forgotten about or tossed to the side in the next little while, and then just being as efficient as you possibly can. That's all the questions I got for you today, Roy. This was a great chat. I think we really did a 360-degree view of, not only who you are and where you came from, but your skills, your ideas, your angle when it comes to governance. Is there anything that we missed today that you think is a big part of what you would like to add to Prince George and what your campaign is all about?
I'll probably think of that tomorrow morning. But,
It's
but
always how it goes.
right now, no, there's nothing. I think we've covered so much ground.
Yeah, we're an hour and 26 minutes in, and that was great. So we are going to launch this as a full podcast, and then I'm going to cut it into clips as well, so we can get as many people to see what you're all about as possible. We're also going to have a link, as we said earlier, in the comments for this video, and also in the clips as well, that'll point right back to your Facebook page, which has your very well thought out platform, also your biography on it, and then a couple of videos kind of talking about what your angle is too. Are you going to be doing more of those videos, kind of talking about what your campaign and platform is all about?
Yes, I've just put together, I think, a package of 5 or 6 that'll be coming out.
Awesome, great. Yeah, so we'll angle people back towards that, and good luck on your campaign. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really like some of the angles you've got here and some of the ideas, and your background, I think, is one of the most impressive that I've seen in the mayoral candidate side of things so far when it comes to process and just getting things done. Knowing that we've got somebody that was an advocate for UNBC and brought a university to the north when that was going to be an extremely tough project at the end of the day. Great to know that you understand what it takes to make something like that happen, because I think those skills really lend themselves to city governance and just running a city as a whole. So thank you very much for this conversation. It really was awesome.
I appreciate the opportunity, Matt. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We'll chat again soon before the election comes down as well. Maybe just do a quick little rundown, talk about how your campaign went too. So keep me in mind.
Thank you. Yep.
Beautiful.
Now, I leave by clicking.
Give me 1 sec.